a digital training community to bring more women journalists to technology and the media. She was named a Knight Fellow at Stanford University for 2015 and a Knight International Journalism Fellow for 2013 to 14, where she worked all across Latin America in major newsrooms and with independent journalists. Mariana is a visual storyteller who did groundbreaking work as a member of the interactive team at The Guardian in London. A trained animator, she pioneered the newsroom's use of motion graphics to make data stories more compelling, and we all know how that is happening really very quickly today. She leads design training workshops to increase a multidisciplinary approach to storytelling, and she's a leader in community transformation via digital training. So we are pleased and privileged to have Mariana Santos as our workshop leader today to talk to you about using technology and ensuring your future.
Thank you so much. Oh, that's so kind words.
It's all yours.
That's so kind words. Okay, where would you like me to sit?
Wherever you want to go. He's got the he's going to,
okay.
take you. So
okay.
You want to sit there, you can come up here, go to the podium.
All right.
Walk around.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you. And I'm so sorry that I came late. And let me tell you why I came late, which is not an excuse. We should never get late. And this is my Achilles heel. I'm always 5 minutes late because I don't count the time in between spaces. So I'm really sorry. We launched today the Chicas Poderosas Peru. And so I was launching, you are Peruvian? Yeah. Amazing. So it's today in Lima. They started a project especially to cover elections and how to use social media and data to cover elections and to control all the mess that can happen in between the lines. So as journalists and as investigators, we can really check for these kind of things, and they are all on top of it. So, okay, let me go back. How much time do I have?
You have 2 hours.
All right. So let's make this like a group, all of us, and I want to tell you lots of things, why I'm here and why Chicas Poderosas is now becoming what it is becoming, and that you guys can do your own thing the same way. First of all, I'm Portuguese. I don't know if I talked to any of you before. I think you, I met.
Fusion.
You are at Fusion.
I exchanged emails with you and Barbara.
So, but I never spoke about my past, and right? So I think now it's a good time if we have 2 hours. I'm Portuguese, which from the south of Portugal, countryside, where people tell us, don't even think that you're going to go very far in your life. Like, you're going to be a mother and, a mother and work in a normal job, and your husband is going to bring money home. That's like the philosophy of Portugal a little bit. It's very machist. But since early age, I was not empowered to think like that. I was a swimmer, and then when you are an athlete, you are driven to, if you train very hard, then when you get a competition, then you try your efforts in the past, and then you either do well or not according to how much you trained. So bringing this philosophy to life is like, the more you give, you'll get it, So don't let anyone tell you that you're not going to make it. So since I was in the countryside, we don't have many public transportations. You all have to be driven by your parents. So it was a very controlled childhood. Then I moved to Lisbon at the age of 17 for the first time. I went to the city, by myself. I didn't even know how to use the metro cards. I didn't know. Nobody told me, ridiculous stuff that I got. I had a fine in the first day that I went in the metro by myself because it didn't click very well, crazy. But I started learning the small lessons in life like this one. And then I went abroad in the Erasmus program. I went to study in Saint-Étienne in France. Erasmus is a program of exchange that you can go 6 months to an university in Europe, and someone from other universities will come to yours. And then I went there, and actually Saint-Étienne, you have to be very good and have very good qualifications to pick up the places that you want to go. Everybody wants to go to Rome or Milan or UK for London. So the other countries like Finland, it's very cold, nobody wants. Or small cities in France, nobody wants. But I applied for everything, and because I was never a very good student, I always been doing 1,000 things at the same time, meaning at school, we have the classifications from 0 to 20. I wanted to have 12 at least. I had to pass with 12 at least because then I don't have to go to oral, you know, to defend. So I need to do good enough, but I don't need to have a 20, you know. There are people that are spending all their life studying and then they get 19s and 20s. I was an average of 17, which without putting like too much effort, like in the art department I was a 17. In other stuff, for instance, history of art, I had bad memory, and it's all about fixing numbers and dates and names of people, and so I had 13 in that. So like, meaning my average was not good enough for me to pick up the place that I wanted to go. So I just applied for all the places that no one wanted to go, and I ended up going to Saint-Étienne in France, which is a small city near Lyon. And in that city, there's nothing to be done. It's a very industrial, small city. And if you are a student, I didn't have any money, not even to take the metro there. And I now knew how to use it, you know? Like, I had to walk or get a bike because I didn't just have any money. So I studied there for 6 months, and it was the hardest 6 months of my life. I guess you passed that phase, and I was 20 years old. And it was the first time I moved away from my parents' house. And imagine, from the countryside, where your parents have to drive you everywhere, to a moment that you are totally by yourself. Now, seeing from now, it doesn't look like something special, but by the time I was like super changed, moved by it. Like, first time I was able to cook my meals, be by myself, not being in my parents' house, which is not very normal in Portugal. You just go out of your parents' house after you marry. That's like the philosophy. But then I loved it, and I had a small depression because I was like, this is all new for me. So I was very sad not to be with my parents and family and friends. But at the same time, I was feeling that I was growing because it was all on me, you know? So then I started working at the restaurant there so I could have extra money to be able to go to the cinema, there was a nice cinema in town. There was nothing else. Even if you go for a run, you would go around 3 or 4 times around the city because it was so small. So then after completing the 6 months, and then I extended another 6 months, and all my friends from the Erasmus left, so I was by myself. So I decided to write a book. Like, all this depression and sadness made me write a book. And the book was about how good it is for you to leave your country and go under we say in Portuguese, you hide under your mother's skirt because you are afraid to face the world. And then I was like, let go your mother's skirt and just go wild and go discover the world. We have a huge world in front of us. And then that was the first moment, because I was there exposed to all of these, that I had the chance to see my entrepreneurial insights or attitudes spread. Every opportunity that was there, I would grab. So I started working in a restaurant. I learned French. I got a little bit of money to go travel to Lyon, which is like half an hour away. And then there was an exhibition, a Biennale of Design there. And then I tried to get involved. And then I called artists from Portugal that was actually living in UK to do a photo exhibition about jazz, because there was a jazz movement. So that was the first moments I got to become an entrepreneur. Like, we did an event in a bar, so we got like sponsorship from the bar to fly the photographer, and then we did stickers, we did pins. We were a group of 5 or 6 designers from my Erasmus group, and we just decided, let's do this. So we had an industrial design, a fashion designer, a communication designer. I'm a communication designer. We had a copywriter, then we had a photographer, and we just put together this exhibition, with pictures like this, but in a bar where jazz is played. So they invited the jazz band, and it was a cell of photography, but mainly was something that at the age of 20 you feel like you can do whatever you want. You don't have to ask permission, and that was the first time I felt like I can do stuff without asking permission. I'm in a foreign country. I don't take myself so serious because my French was very bad. Like, I just try to express myself. And at the end of the day, you do things that maybe if you would be in your comfort zone at home, you wouldn't, because it's not perfect, So that was like the first moment I was like, we can do things. So after that, I felt like I don't want to go back to Portugal. So first of all, I like awkward stuff, like as a designer. And I love philosophy and anthropology, and I love Kant and Freud and Marshall McLuhan, like those people, like those writers and philosophers that I was reading when I was so alone. So I did this kind of like, this book which was like half in French, half in Portuguese, just to prove that I could write French. I was edited million times. And then the book was, my audience was the Portuguese students that were like me, and maybe they would be a little bit afraid to leave their comfort zone. And I wanted to empower them. Come out, it's amazing world out there. And then across, like Saint Etienne was named like Cité du Design, which means city of design. And actually, all around you would go, you would step on dogs' poo all the time. Because the French people would go with the dogs, with the milous, you know, they would do poops, and they don't have the culture or tradition to grab the poops like here, you know. And so it's the city of design. It's designed to be like super avant-garde in terms of design, but then you would always step on poo of dog every night. I promise you. So I wanted to do something, some critique for the city. Like you name yourself as city of design, and then the city is full of poop. This is not design, you know. So I did like a wallpaper in my print class, a wallpaper of like girls with the dogs and the poops, like in a way that it couldn't you couldn't see that it was. And then I did the entire wall of that for the final Biennale of Design, and you know it passed, and they liked it, and it was kind of a satire critique, but it was accepted. Like, if I would be afraid, I wouldn't have done it. You know, with conclusion, it's just like put yourself out there and don't be afraid. And then I did this book, and then I came back to Portugal, and I presented that to the University of Lisbon, which is kind of, imagine FIU in small, and they have universities all across the country, specifically in Lisbon, but across the country, which is like the main group of universities. And I sent that to the dean saying, look, I did this book about going out. Portuguese people are very afraid to leave, and it's such a great world out there that we can learn so much. I think more students should go abroad. And then all the design, I drew the dogs pooing, and then I did this slow-mo photography, the very bad cameras, like analogic cameras. I took pictures of bulldogs, and very funny. And then they accepted. And I was like, how come the university accepts a book full of poos, you know? But it was like a satirical, funny way. So it was like by design, not by just making it look awful. So that was another thing that I found. Wow, if I applied to make a book, it was my first book, I was 20 years. I never thought I could, and half in French, because I wanted to challenge myself to write in French. So it went live, 2,000 exemplars, books published and then delivered across the universities. And the name was, If You Don't Believe in Yourself, What Do You Believe In? Which was kind of my conclusion of that 1 year of uncomfortable zone, you know? So that was a great learning for me. And after that year, I never came back to Portugal until today. So I've been going back and forth just for holidays and see my family, but I love the uncomfortable zone of outside my comfort zone, and I got addicted to it. I never worked in Portuguese, which is my mother language. Again, maybe because I'm a bit perfectionist, and I wouldn't allow myself to make mistakes in Portuguese. You know, when we are in our zone where we are expected to excel, we don't allow ourselves to make failures. Like in Portugal, nobody would allow me to do this crazy stuff, you know? So putting myself out there in situations where I don't have to perform to the maximum, because people give me a discount, let's say, of it's not your mother language. Like, as you can see, my English is not perfect, but you understand me. But I don't judge myself on it, both in Spanish and in English. And then I love it. So then after that, I applied for a job in Berlin. Again, some of my fellows, colleagues at the Erasmus program, they went to Berlin for their internships. And I just went along one of their trips, and I did a meeting, an interview, the first interview of my life. I just can I show you my portfolio? Back in the days, it was these big portfolios printed. I came with my portfolio. I was like, this is what I do, this is what I like to do. And they were like, okay, when do you want to start? I was like, what? And was at Universal Music Berlin, to do design for the covers of the CDs. I was never expected that they would even consider me. But I didn't have anything to lose, so I went to the interview, I want to see this is material for training, for interview. And then ended up being like, you want to come here? And I was like, yes. So it was then, I went there after 1 month or something, and I finished my book and my degree. I went to work there, and for 1 year I was working in Berlin, and I had to learn German because my clients would speak to me in German. So that was, again, very hard because I found Berlin to be very racist, and because you can see I'm not a German. One situation very harsh was I was in a bike. Imagine, I didn't understand anything of German at all, and people would all speak in German. I was in the bike trail, again, the first time I was doing the bike trail, because in Portugal I didn't have bike trails, all new for me. And then this one guy came to me, like old man, very, very sad and tense, and he gave me his shoulder, and he put me out of my bike, out of nothing. Like, I didn't do anything to him. I was in my track. He was just like, you could feel the tension in Berlin still. People from the east and west, and there was like massive, not welcoming feeling for foreigners. So I felt from the bike. And actually there was some rubbish bins, so I felt on top of the bins, and I didn't get hurt. But I was like, the only word I knew was warum, because of a song that says warum, which means why. I was like, warum, warum, warum? And I was afraid of the man, but at the same time I was like, warum? Like screaming, like, why do you do this to me? What did I do to you? Like, this is not fair. And then I started crying, and then these ladies came and they hugged me, and I felt super like better. And then I just learned, like, life is not gonna always give you orange juice. Maybe they give you lemons, and So I was just like, okay, learning with the things, learning. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn German. So that's what made me learn German. So I could say warum da 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 da, and continue to go. And then, okay, I worked there for a year, and then this was the first lesson of my life that I would recommend to you to think about. But at the end of so I was dedicating my life to the company. I was working from 9 a.m. till midnight because I loved it so much. So I started doing covers for the CDs, but soon there was a guy doing animation, and sooner rather than later, the guy was always working alone until midnight, and I had no friends in Berlin. I didn't speak the language, so all I had was my colleagues at work. We were about 6 or 5 or 7. So I would sit next to him and see him doing animations, like, oh, that's so amazing what you're doing. I would love to learn. He's like, okay, here's 3 DVDs, learn it. I'm gonna give you a project. I was like, what? So the DVDs were like 300 hours of tutorials, which I would go home I started going home at 9 p.m., watch the tutorials until 1 or 2 in the morning, and then sleep very fast, and then wake up at 7 with my breakfast doing tutorials. So in 3 months, I learned After Effects, which is this software to do animations. And then he gave me a project from Mariah Carey, like, because you are a girl, and the boy editing was all boys. So the project would all be like the boy style, And they say, okay, this is Mariah Carey, you are girly with your flowers and stuff, do your thing. So I loved it, and he gave me 1 month, a project that would usually take 1 week. He gave me 1 month to do because I was starting. You can imagine, I didn't sleep for that 1 month. But then I did an animation it was a 30 seconds animation of the CD and a little bit of Mariah Carey saying stuff in German, and I would have to do animations. And I just killed whatever I wanted. So first of all, to have total freedom to do whatever I wanted was amazing. And second, to be given the responsibility, even though I didn't know the skill, to be given the trust and responsibility to produce something. So I did it, I did everything I learned in the DVDs I put there. So it was kind of basic. But at the end, he delivered. He did final fixings, and then he delivered to Mariah Carey, and she wrote back an email saying, I love this video so much more than everything else you've been producing. Because I did flowers, I did colors and butterflies. I used all her...
Yeah, her mimes.
Yes, all her girl stuff. And she loved it. And the boy would never do this, Yeah. So I was like, that was my first lesson thinking, we need diversity in whatever you do. Because we always have clients that are males and female and other genders, and the ultimate goal is to produce content and products that will speak for everyone, not just for men. So that was the first learning that, women, we need to step up. And I was given the opportunity of this guy that trusted me. And that does not happen all the time. So I was thinking, how can I replicate this somewhere in my life? So this was in my head, And first lesson I learned here, very, very big about business. When I was at the end of the year, I started doing more projects of animation. So I moved from static design to animation. And they had an extra pair of hands, and I was super devoted. So they at the end of the year contract, they said, okay, so we want to hire you. And I was like, okay, how much money do you want to give me? 250 euros. I was like, what? My house costs 500, and then I need to eat. And then and that's I don't have anything to do with their cars, but all the bosses drove Maseratis and Ferraris. The company was doing very well. And we had a company in Berlin and in Hamburg. And they was like, look, my house is $500. So I left Portugal because I didn't want to be the generation 1,000 euros, because it's the name of my generation. Nobody would make more than 1,000 euros. whatever study you have, PhDs, it didn't matter. So I left Portugal because I didn't want to be that. I don't mind to be the generation 1000 here in Berlin because I have an extra challenge, which is the language, and I'm navigating a different world. But at least 1,000. And I said, no, 750. Just to go against my word, you know? Like from 250, he passed to 750. I was like, okay, with 250 euros, I cannot eat for an entire month. Could you? You know, and he was like, no, but I'm not going to give you more. And I was like, okay, so I'm not staying. And that decision took, like, it was very hard for me to say no to Universal Music, my first job. But they had to respect me, you know? And I was like, this is crazy. They are not respecting me. So I swallowed this huge frog, which was like, I want to work here and I could work for free, but I need to be respected. And it was not about the money, it was about the respect. So this was the first time I quit on a job that I loved because they didn't respect me. So the only lesson I want you guys to take is always make yourself valuable and never let people take advantage of you. So basically I delivered 1 year of my life for them, for free for them, because I was paid by the government of Portugal to work abroad. So they didn't pay a P for 1 year. And then the second year they wanted to take advantage, you know? Anyway, just like never let people abuse of you. It's good that we do a little bit of voluntary work in the beginning, but we need to pay our bills. And especially working in our profession, if people ask me to take care of my grandparents or, you know, a home for elderly, I would do it for free.